Hola, hola, and buenos dias, GnGs. My name is Trekkw2ks, and this is Weekend Crypto. And it has been a minute since I've actually done the joints this way, just because of being on the move and things happening in life and stuff. Um, so it's like the adjustment period going on right now. But nonetheless, for the folks who have still been tapping in my mobile versions of these weekend cryptos, I appreciate. Thank y'all so much. And yeah, like I do appreciate because I know it's a different setup and stuff. But I still try to give that same level of here's some events that happen. Let me try to put some context and correlate some other events to it. Hopefully what I said makes sense and you use it as cross-reference to how you're trying to move through this space. Not saying it might be the absolute right thing. I probably could be off X amount of the times, but you know, hopefully what I says does correlate and make sense, and eventually you'll see how things pop off. But I got a couple of stories. It was a lot of, as usual, it was a lot of price talk stuff. A couple of things you'll see, we'll get into it and you'll be like, oh, okay. So, okay. And I'm a jump on a topic that I usually don't do this type of let me get this information in here, but y'all will see why once I get into that particular segment of the on the new stuff. So again, thank y'all for still tapping in. Thank y'all for the comments when I see y'all in the live streams. For my timeline at the 08 when this comes on. By the way, if you don't know, if this is your first time coming here, the basic idea is I cover the weekend news that happens between Friday evening and Sunday, pop it out Monday morning 08, hence the weekend crypto. And thanks to the big homies Zay and King for letting me do this segment on here. And also a thing to note, just because I didn't cover it, it don't mean there's not someone else on the network who's not going to cover it later on in the week. It's just for how my news cycle works, for what I pay attention to, and the things that I try to stay away from as far as like just straight price talk, speculative stuff. Not my area of expertise or a real cup of tea, but we definitely got other folks who could give you all the FATA stuff that you want to hear, like Black Uhuru, like Crypto and Down. And of course, like King and Zay in the morning stuff. So if that's your thing, hey, we got somebody who's gonna cover it down for you. If you want to hear the other side of stuff, that's where I'm at. Other thing to note is I do the other show called Metaverse is the Other Side, which we do the live Twitter spaces on Thursdays at 8 p.m. on the Builder DAO account. And then we do the replay on what is that, Fridays at 11 p.m. We might have to work on changing the date and time, but for right now, we've been running with the Friday at 11 p.m. thing to kind of work out with the Cali folks and people who are outside of like U.S. time zone stuff. But let me jump into these stories, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I ain't really running on too many things, but I'm gonna kind of dig in on a couple of things. So first joint right here is bill protecting Bitcoin mining rights passes in Arkansas Senate and House. So basically, one of their Congress people came and was like, hey, let's do this thing for Bitcoin mining. Now I'm kind of curious as far as like, is this really exclusively just to Bitcoin mining, considering that there are other things you can mine in crypto? And the basic idea of what they are doing here, and I'll read through the highlights on this, is a bill seeking to regulate Bitcoin mining activities in Arkansas has passed the state's House of Representatives and Senate. The bill now moves towards the governor's office for approval. According to the bill, the Arkansas Data Center Acts 2023 intends to regulate Bitcoin mining industry in the American state, creating guidelines for miners and protecting them from discriminatory regulations and taxes. Here's the funny thing about this. Is this just for business level? Like I own a farm. What about like the mom and pops person who might have 2 or 3 miners in their basement or in their attic, or they only run it seasonally when it's cold? Because Arkansas is not necessarily a warm state during the winter. Okay, just saying. The other thing that gets me about this is they threw this in under the like, oh, well, let's treat it like data centers. How many data centers are in Arkansas? That kind of threw me off when I seen that part of it. Not much else to really say about the bill aside from that it isn't law yet. It's still in the process of being, well, it's sitting for the governor's approval. So once the governor signs it, then bam, all right, that happens. But there's no guarantee that the governor is going to sign it. Something could come up last minute and he'd be like, oh, no, I'm not going to do it. And then the whole thing gets kicked back. Um, I imagine, well, let me say this. Event driven wise, right? States are going to have to find ways to get money out of the citizens as well as find ways to get money out of businesses. Part of that would be, well, let's create regulatory friendly environments to get new developing industries to come within our borders, and then they'll have to pay reasonable taxes. They will also bring jobs and they will also bring that market into our region, which will then work to have other secondary industries off of it. So we might need more housing, we might need more retail, we might need more food, things along that line. That's the thought process generally. But you got to look at how some of these states are moving, where it's like, well, we can't do the financial thing like New York or like some of what is going on in Miami. Okay. But we have these other, let's say, natural resources or where our area could be utilized in other capacities for certain industries. That's what I think Arkansas is taking advantage of. I think more states will also look to do the same thing in trying to figure out how do we get the physical real world part of the industry to come into our borders and hold business here. More states are going to do this. Hopefully states do not follow the direction of New York or like California, and this kind of starts a wave or trend, but we'll see what happens as things continue further within like the upheaval in the economy and the political situation and blah blah blah, as well as just like we see what's going on. We're moving towards the happening, and we all know, well, those of us who've been around for a while understand and know that like when the happening comes at a certain point, you're going to see a crazy pump across everything. So whatever it is you're doing, if it's something that's mineable, you might have some gains coming your way. Then there's the other part of it, the states who have somebody who understands that when the happening happens, there's this influx of gains into the space because the fiat is coming in, the value of the crypto is going up. Guess what? More taxes, baby. Just saying. That's the name of the game. Jumping into this next story here. And I had to actually read this a couple of times to kind of digest what was going on. Um, and there's a line at the end that caught my attention more than everything above it. Okay. So Sushi Swap hacked. Head chief says revoke all chains. I feel like that was a crappy headline, by the way, but nonetheless, it is what it is. So quick take is Sushi Swap has fallen the victim to an exploit. And the way that this is said for the time of when this was pushed out, which this is April 9th, on the eve of April 9th. So anybody who did it in the last 4 days would probably have issue. Not 100% sure unless you actually turned off the particular feature, because it's a smart contract thing. But let's jump into this real quick. Decentralized exchange Sushi Swap has fallen victim to an exploit, which led to the loss of more than 3.3 million for at least one user. God damn, I know you mad right now. And he probably gonna try to look to sue somebody. You know how that go. This user right here, whatever. So this got me when I was reading it because I was like, wait, what are we saying exactly here? Because it's somewhat in the technical jargon, but then it's kind of still not sensible when you first read it. So um here's the basic idea. There's a smart contract that was approved even though it had a bug in it. And the bug basically worked where if you had it do a certain thing for like where when it called for a function, the information was supposed to be, it didn't do any of the safety checks to make sure that it's like the right wallet looking to activate that smart contract to do whatever with the funds in it. And the bottom line is the first attacker figured that out, and then somehow there was a second attacker who also figured it out. And so they made away with over 3 million, and they took it all in ETH. They took it all in ETH, and they made away with over 3 million. By the way, the function is called the swap 3 callback function. What was the other part that got me? No, okay. Let me jump down to here. So the block research, what is it? The block research analysis, Kevin Peng explains that so far 190 Ethereum addresses have approved the problematic contract. However, more than 2,000 addresses on the layer 2 Arbitrum have seemingly approved the bad contract. So, for all of the talk that they had around Arbitrum, like, this might be problematic. I don't know. I'm not messing with it myself, but for those of you out there who might be, you might want to check on your stuff. Just saying. You might want to check on your stuff, right? So, oh man. Let me go into this next part. This last line right here is what got me. Gray, who's the CTO guy. Sorry, man. My nose has been bothering me all day today. Gray, who is also seeking a 3 million legal defense fund for Sushi DAO after Sushi was hit with a subpoena from the SEC, basically, tweeted that Sushi is working with security teams to mitigate the issue. So now I'm not 100% certain why they look to make that correlation of, hey, he's doing a thing with, the DAO and the funding thing and the security thing. But here's what I do know. When you get hit with any type of paperwork from the SEC, if they're going to look to press you, they're going to make sure they can cut your funds off for your legal defense. And depending on the charge they get is like how far reaching the powers are that they have to cut off certain things and isolate you. So the financial isolation is a tactic that the SEC uses, which makes sense to me that you would prepare some kind of legal defense fund of getting money outside of the business, because then they can't say, oh, well, we're going to stop that money. Or probably they could argue it. But the bigger point here is SushiSwap about to get into a situation with the SEC? And do they possibly think they might lose? Remember what King be saying about how, like, if you below the 30 million marker and how much you pulling in, they're going to press you. And they're going to keep pressing you once they get you to give an inch the first go. So I'm curious about this situation and how this is going to play out over the remainder of the year. Just my thought. Y'all could think different. It's not a problem. If you do think different, share it in the comments. They always open. As I said before, we don't delete. We do keep receipts, though. So just saying. Jumping on to this next joint. Binance unable to find bank partners in the United States. There's nothing really, as far as how this article is written out, there's nothing blaring out at me. At the end of the day, bottom line is what's happening, and I said this a while ago, Biden's executive order was the dog whistle to the varying agencies in pressing what they could within their wheelhouse, within their lane of anything crypto related, blockchain related, more so crypto related, because the idea is more about how do we throttle capital flight control. And so the situation with Silvergate, the situation with SVB Bank, the situation with Signature Bank, those institutions, those mechanisms of being able to move fiat-based capital throttles and is an effective way of blocking capital flight control. And so the target just happens to be Binance because they're outside the US company as far as the parent company, not Binance US. So if you can mess around, and this is me just looking at it going, if you can mess around with Binance US enough, it's going to mess with the parent company. And I think to a degree, there might be a level of proxy fighting going on. I don't want to say war. I'm gonna say proxy fighting going on with the US and things that are China connected. But they're like, this is an area to pick on where China's not gonna get mad at you. Like it this is at least my hypothesis. I'm not saying you gotta agree with me. This is just me and my I don't got a tinfoil toboggan. I just put up the hoodie, and I'm representing it that way. I'm putting up the hoodie to say this is a proxy for something else, and it's a way to dig at China in how I'm looking at it via messing around with the Binance USA, which messes with the main company Binance. The other part of it too is it is a capital flight control thing, and I'm not saying it would be like everyone in the fiat markets or things would jump into crypto. That's not what I'm saying at all. But for the folks who understand or have the plug to be able to get them in, when stuff starts really messing up publicly, where like the White House has to admit shit is messed up, the Treasury has to admit it, the feds have to admit it. Like when it gets to that level, at that point, if you don't already have your things in place, guess what? You stuck. And this is the preemptive thing. That whole thing about the choke point, Operation Choke Point, or the report about it, like there's people in the bureaucratic settings who are like, oh no, that's not even a thing. I just seen something the other day about that. That's not even a thing. That's not what's going on. This is just about, protecting the American people and blah blah. No, dog. This is them cutting off the exits. They're closing exits for people to find other ways of getting out of fiat, of storing their value or transferring their value. This is one of those things. I'm not saying it's the only thing. And again, this is just me being me in the hoodie, a guy on the internet wearing shades. Okay. So take that with a large ass grain of salt. Nonetheless, though, basically it's like they're squeezing Binance out of the US market, which again, look what happened with the other exchange that just said, what was that, last week? They was like, yo, it's costing too much to operate in an American market. It's not even worth the legal headache. At what point does Binance start calculating the numbers? Because it's the same thing I said about the other exchange. At what point do they start calculating the numbers and go, yo, how much is it costing us to deal with all this legal BS with them? Oh, it's that much? If we set out of the market and out of the US market and just focused on all the other ones that we're already in and then expand on a couple in Africa and Latin America, how much would that put us off from what we were making in the US? Or how long could we sit out and not get that US gain before we would have to be like, all right, we need to fight our way back in? 2 years, 3 years? I don't know. But I mean, personally, I would think that would be one of the things to calculate. How important is this market for X amount of duration and time? And what would that mean if we just stepped out now and was like, all right, we're gonna wipe our hands of it. Fuck it. It is what it is. And then we came back later. And then the other part of, yeah, it's like, well, how many companies would thrive with you being out the market, but how many other companies would end up folding because they couldn't deal and say, all right, we're going to exit the US market? The companies that are here that get the shoulder tap from gang, how do they work it out? I'm just saying, how, Sway? How? I'm just saying. Um, so yeah, that's the basic on that. Then jump into this other story here. I was reading this and I was like, I wasn't 100% certain of what was going on. And I honestly think that this is going to be a can of worms. So ZK Sync developed solution to unfreeze 1.7 million stuck in a smart contract. A couple weeks ago, I covered a story that talked about how there was a reverse transaction from a null address that was in the Polygon. It's in it, so that's the EVM ecosystem, right? No one talked about this. I didn't see it anywhere else as far as like other content people, techie people talking about this. okay, the bottom line is, to me, this brings up something else that might be potentially going on. As far as the can of worms. And I honestly think that this is more of a matter of when and not if. So the basic idea is that there is a function, another function issue, um, in the smart contract where um because the gas fee that was supplied, the gas amount that was supplied to the smart contract was not enough, it ended up basically not being able to execute because the gas ended up being, for the actual function for it to do its stuff, was more than what was supplied to it. So I wonder if what they're going to do is find a way to add in a new line or do something that will get the contract to think it has the gas, or will they do some other kind of contract that will add in the gas somehow so that it will release the capital, the funds. I don't know exactly. I'm a crappy. I'm like a level 0 coder, honestly, especially when it comes to Solidity. Um, but I have some enough technical idea, and I'm curious. The bottom line, and in regards to this article, is they don't even tell you what they're going to do. ZK Sync just like throws it out there. Hey, we have this pretty, what was the word they used? They used a certain word. Let's say God damn it. Anywho, I'm gonna let that go. But they used a certain word to make it seem like, oh, we have this really cute. It wasn't cute, but the word was not cute that they used. They didn't use that word. But the bottom line is they're saying that, hey, we figured out a way to get the funds released. Here's the other funky part about this. It's another company that they were working with who didn't test the contract on their test net before putting it on the main net and adding in funds to it. So I'm just saying, I don't know if that's really the way to go to like deal with doing business with them again, because obviously they didn't take security that serious. That's just my thought on that. But if you're in the ZK Sync world, this might be something you want to pay attention on your radar. Like I said, I think that this opens a can of worms within the ZK Sync realm, as well as in the smart contract realm for the EVM world, because if they can do this, then that means a hacker or a black hat person can do this. So we'll see how this plays out. Last thing. So I want to say shout outs to Reggie Middleton, right? Because this last story, the reason why I ended up even looking into this or like adding this into the thing, into this episode, is because I think a lot of folks are confused on this whole Fed Now situation and how people are correlating it to like, oh, Fed Now, CBDCs, aka what I call the blue dogs. It's not what y'all think. Okay. So let me get into this. I'm not going to play the video because y'all know how YouTube is on stuff, right? But I have the link for this in the description. If you want to watch this video yourself, and you could find it on YouTube because they stored it on the YouTube side. The point is, you can watch this video and it explains what FedNow is and how it works. So let me put this in clarity for y'all. FedNow is the local US version of Swift. Swift is a messaging system that different countries use in order to be able to do settlements and give the authority of transferring value. There is no money in Swift, which is the same way that FedNow works. If you don't know what Swift is, Google that shit. You're going to learn something. But bringing it back to FedNow. FedNow is a messaging system. And again, like shout outs to Reggie, because Reggie was the one who said something in a post, and I was like, wait, what? And my response was, oh, so you mean like how Swift works? I don't think he responded back to me, but anywho, whatever. But it got me to then go, you know what, let me look into the FedNow thing and see like what is it that people are getting all ups in arms about, and how does it actually relate to CBDCs. Bottom line is this: FedNow is a messaging system. Let me give you the breakdown. I'm Trek. Zay has his, and Zay is over here. I have my business. I have the bank that I bank with for my business. Zay has his bank that he banks with for his business. We, I provide a service to him, so he charges me for that service. How FedNow works is FedNow says, hold on, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to go to your banking institutions that you do your business with, and we're going to say to them to have real-time settlement, which there's a whole question I have about the technical definition of what are we calling real-time settlement now and what that means in this system, and the 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 understanding and execution of like digital money. Okay. So now they go, okay, we're going to go to your financial institutions. They have to sign up to our system of messaging that you two do business with one another. And so when Zay charges me for a service, he sends me the invoice. I send to my bank through the app that the bank has, hey, I'm going to pay Zay for blah, blah, blah service from this invoice. The bank then sends the message to FedNow. FedNow then sends the message down to Zay's bank. Zay's bank says, okay, cool, we're expecting that money. But FedNow does not actually transfer any value between bank A and bank B. This is the same way the Swift system works. There's no actual money in the entity known as Swift. Just as far as how FedNow works now, there is no money, there is no capital, there's no funds that they are actually transferring back and forth between primary and secondary institutions that are doing, quote, business of capital transfer. FedNow only says, hey, I'm letting your bank know that you're sending money to his bank and it's cool. And because we said yes through the FedNow messaging system, that is what is being called near real-time settlement. It's not that the funds, the money is moving from my bank to Zay's bank. It's that there's a messaging system in the middle that's saying, oh, y'all are doing business together, everything is cool, because they're on the same network. Now, where does the CBDC stuff come in? Here's the funny part of this thing. When you watch this video, I promise you, it will make sense with how they're explaining it. There is no money in the system of FedNow. CBDCs would be a technology that represents a financial medium that will be added in at a certain point. It's a logical thought process to add that in. So like FedNow is arguably Ethereum, excuse me, a centralized Ethereum without the ETH on it. Because all it does is message back and forth between different institutions. That's it. And you could do it on a 24-hour schedule. Now, this was not a weekend thing. Granted, when I saw that post from Reggie, it was on Friday, but I had to go and look in on this one on my own, and I had to like throw this out because people are mixing up what FedNow is and what CBDCs are and how it could be integrated into a FedNow messaging system. Again, FedNow is just a messaging system that does not have a monetary element to it. Not saying down the road when they look to do upgrades on it that they won't add in a monetary system to it or medium such as a CBDC, but there's also nothing that stops them from adding in some kind of other digital representation of money. That's the other part of it that folks aren't like explaining correctly. The way the thing is set up now, it is literally just a messaging system. So imagine, so when we do sanctions on countries in Swift, What we're really saying is, hey, you can't talk to that person in the group chat no more. That's it. That's literally what we're doing. When you get on the sanction list, you can't talk to the other people in the group text. That's it. It's the same thing that we about to do here in the States at the local level. So whether you're a regular mom and pop's business, mid-sized business, large scale business, national business, regional business, like depending on how the laws and things go in the next coming months, decades, and years, with the Fed Now thing in there, yeah, like your ability to do business with other, like either a B2B level, a B2C level, can definitely be interrupted with how the Fed Now system works, because they're going for all of the financial institutions that hold our funds, that hold our capital. Fed Now itself is not a bank, but it is the communication medium between the banks. So credit unions, commercial and retail banks are all being pushed to be in the Fed Now network, in the Fed Now messaging system. That's all it is. The money is still staying at the banks for now. I don't know when the switch up is going to happen, but I imagine at a certain point it is, and I'm leaving it out on that story. Like I said, you can definitely go and see the site yourself. Watch this first video here. It literally gives you a whole visual breakdown, and listen to what they're explaining. They're not talking about transferring value. They're only talking about giving a message that says this person or this account on ledger, this column on the ledger of A did a transaction with column B. That's it. And they don't even hold any of the actual funds. It's still the banks and the financial institutions that are doing that part. Nonetheless, I'm just trying to educate some people on some things and saying this: if you aren't working out your real world networks and communities, if this is a concern for you, and I'm not telling you to go run, jump into crypto, don't go like take all your money out the bank. I'm not telling you what to do, because I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA. I'm just some guy on the internet in shades. And I'm not an economist. I just happen to pay attention to some people who are a lot smarter than me and who've been doing this thing a lot longer than me. And the things that we see coming down the pike kind of show that your governmental representatives and the system that we tout so much as the Republic of the US does not want digital economic sovereignty for its citizens. So my thing is, if you're not working on building your communities and networks that are supportive of like your goals and endeavors and how you're looking to be able to have some level of financial agency, don't be mad when you wake up one day and it's like, oh, I can't get into my bank account. What happened? Hey, it ain't like you wasn't getting told what was coming down the pike. Again, comments are open. If you disagree with me, it's okay. It's all good. If you're going to try to spam it, all right, do that too. I ain't worried. You know, the algos and the bots, they cut out the stuff like they need to. But I'm just saying, when things start to get funky out here, you can't say it wasn't folks out here trying to educate y'all on what was going on and like kind of ringing a bell. That's it, y'all. It's a Monday. I'm hoping everybody has a productive over busy week or day, a week. And if not, at least be in a safe space, in a safe place, in good company. And don't forget, Wednesdays is the Metaverse is the Other Side Twitter Spaces on the Builder Dial account. Link is in the description on that, as well as Friday is the replay. Again, 11 p.m. on Fridays, 8 p.m. on Thursdays. That's East Coast time, by the way. And other than that, I guess I will check y'all in the live. Oh, no, there's not going to be a live today. I'll catch y'all tomorrow, unless you're in my joint. All right, y'all. One.